My name's Chris Gregory. I am the CEO of a children's charity called Isle of Play, and we're based on the Isle of Man. I've been working in the field of play and play work for about 16 years now, and I came over to the Isle of Man just as a play worker and a teacher. Since then, we formed Isle of Play 2 years ago now, and we've been working with, prior to lockdown, 1,000 children every week. What we endeavour to do is to promote children's right to play as set out in the United Nations Convention of the Rights of the Child, and to provide opportunities for children to play. So the way that we've managed to do that to date has been through a number of ways. So I'll just show you a couple of slides, give you an idea of what we do. Wait for it, there we go. Oh, no. Hold on. Yeah, there we go. We're in a number of projects. So we run a full-time forest school, which is open every day, and we run 2 sessions a day for children around the island from different schools. During the school holidays, we run a mobile play scheme, which is attended to over the 12 weeks by 7,000 children last year. And our latest project, which is called Leicester's Yard Adventure Playground, named after the wonderful Stuart Lester, who was a professor in children's play and play work, is our latest project. It's a place where children come after school for free, and we give them hammers and nails and saws, and they can experience fire, they can cook, they can climb. It's pretty rough looking, and prior to lockdown, it was attended by about 50 children every day. So we've gone from working with 1,000 children a week to just a handful at the moment, which has been taking some getting used to. So what I'm going to do now, part of the other stuff that we do, I should say as well, we deliver training to teachers, to social workers, we've delivered conferences, we do a lot of training around risk and risk management, looking at risk benefit assessments, and we're working with education very closely at the moment, and working with vulnerable children who have been identified as being at high risk. So I'm just going to focus a little bit, I think just as we stand at the moment, I'm going to look at how children have been neglected, in my opinion, over the past 3 months since lockdown came in. It's worth knowing as well, I guess, we had some good news today that the Isle of Man has officially got no cases of COVID that have been detected for the first time. So we're in a good position, and we're in the process of slowly reopening, which has been great. So if you're not familiar with the rights of the child, there are 54 articles in total, and each one of them spells out what a government's duty is to the children. Now, every article links to other articles. It should never be read as being a piecemeal document in any way, shape or form. So in the case of Article 31, which is the article that I'm going to focus on, which is the right to play, it links to Article 2, 3, 6, 12, 15, 18 and 19, which are, in the same order, non-discrimination, the best interests of the child, the right to life, survival and development, respect the views of the child, the right to meet other children, and to be protected from violence, abuse and neglect. And I don't think it would take much to realise that actually what's happened is, over this recent period, that a lot of those rights have been forsaken. Let me just turn this off so you can see my beautiful face again. So how is it that in a time like this, that human rights, it's probably a time when they're probably more pivotal than ever, but they're being ignored? And one case that came to mind very early days in the first 4 weeks of lockdown, I received a message via our social media platform from a 10-year-old boy who was coming to the adventure playground every night. He'd only recently started coming, and he's really started to form some really close friends. And he's a bit of a different child. I'm just going to call him Ian for the sake of this. That's not actually his real name. Now, Ian, how do I put this? So he's not into football. He's not into the usual things that other boys are into. He's not a particular rough and tumble kind of guy. His interests actually lie in stand-up comedy, which I think is remarkable for a child of 10. He's popular enough within the playground, but he doesn't have any close friends. But over the last week that we were there, he'd started building a big den, with hammers and nails and saws, and he'd building it and building it and building it, and it got many, many tears as it had grown. And then as he built it and it got bigger, more and more children started to gravitate towards this wonderful den that he was building. He was putting slides on it. And on the last day before lockdown, and we didn't know lockdown was happening, he was the center of attention of this whole playground. There were 50 children there, and probably about 30 of them were all gravitated towards Kean. And it was brilliant. It just boosted his self-esteem no end. Now, his home life is not something that would fall into any category or even any notable signs of high risk, I would say. He lives at home alone with his dad. He's got no siblings of a similar age that live with him. And 3 or 4 weeks into lockdown, I got this message from him, and it was just 4 words. He just said, "It's just not fair." He doesn't have any neighbors to play with. And he was on his own, and he literally just found himself locked in his bedroom in his PJs for most of the day. 3 months on, and what's been done about this boy? He's not a child that's flagged up by social services. The education department haven't flagged him as being of any particular high risk either. And there's other questions then that I think need to, if we're considering the denial of basic human rights as being a form of neglect and abuse, but it goes even further. So if we look at the effects of play deprivation, and we look at some of the neuroscience behind that. So one of the greatest I think the greatest neuroscience that's currently with us is a gentleman called Dr. Jaak Panksepp. And he produced the most amazing studies through using rats, and the way that rats' brains are lined up are very similar to the way the human brain. And what he found was, he was effectively just cementing what had already been discussed by people before him, but that the opposite of play is not work. The opposite of play is depression. And that if you deny rats or children, as it surmises, the opportunity to play, then the signs and symptoms of depression set in, and they set in very, very quickly. What the long-term effects of that are, we're not entirely sure when it comes to children and people, but it's not going to be anything positive, I can tell you that much for sure. Also, when children play, new neural pathways are formed throughout the brain, especially in the frontal lobes, as I recall. And so if we're saying that to deny children opportunity to play for a sustained period of time is going to impact brain development, there's evidence that shows and suggests very strongly that physical development is going to suffer. Their emotional and their social well-being is also going to suffer. What we've got effectively is enforced abuse being put upon thousands of children throughout the UK, and we're seeing it here on the Isle of Man. And it's all very well for some children who have brothers and sisters and neighbours close by, and those people that are allowing contact within little pods and groups, but it doesn't make any difference to those children that are on their own. And these are children that wouldn't necessarily fall into the usual categories of children at high risk. So what has the government's response been? Well, we're seeing children return to school currently, as Brenda mentioned earlier. Militant places. There's something really bizarre I find about this. So I'm not sure if you guys have seen any of these videos. Some schools are putting out these sort of inspirational, motivational videos of children lined up, 2 meters apart, putting hand gel on their hand and walking in line to fall into a classroom where they're separated, and they've been given worksheets to do bloody maths, because that's the one thing that a child needs now more than anything else is some numeracy. And I just find it absolutely mind-boggling. And again, what the neuroscience was showing to us, Panksepp's research was showing that if you if you put rats or children in a position where they can be next to each other, but they can't touch, it's not doing anything really to offset the damage that occurs emotionally, socially, and physically. So, I mean, it's all a little bit depressing, to be honest, I think, when we look at it like that. And I think that the impact, as well as the physical, the emotional, the social, the mental, I think we're going to find that it's going to be hitting us hard financially as well. And I don't think there's been any consideration for that whatsoever, because I know that people at CAMS, Child and Adolescent Mental Health Services over here, are really genuinely very concerned about the long-term effects. They're already overstretched. They haven't got the support, they haven't got the finances, and they haven't got the staff to be able to work with more and more children. And that's exactly what we're going to see. And for the life of me, I cannot understand why there has been no thought. And this, I mean, I'm talking from an Isle of Man perspective, but I'm seeing exactly the same being mirrored in the UK. I mean, we're lucky, we're down to no cases now. And, you know, we're being heralded in many ways for the work that's been done. But the same here, as usual, they are neglecting children in an attempt to open up society quicker, throw them into school, but let's not actually care what we do with them. It's simply not enough, and it's not good enough. We need to be looking at giving children what they need. And from an evolutionary point of view, what children need is to be able to play. And that's something we're not seeing. So that's the doom and gloom side of things. So what is it that we actually can do? So what we've started doing is now we're working with local schools to identify children who are specifically at risk. We realise we're not going to be able to go in and change the way the schools are doing things. We've tried banging on the minister's doors in the past, and we don't have any success. So what we're trying to do is help where we can. And normally that seems to be by going in through the back door and doing things our way. So we've started identifying children now with local head teachers who they are recognising as being at risk, but not necessarily through the usual ways that we would define risk. So we're working with children like Ian, we're working with children like Andrew, and lots of other children. So we've got a capacity where we can work with up to about 100 children every week at the moment, but we just need to identify them and get the funding to make sure that we can actually deliver the services that we need. So today, for example, I was sat with a 15-year-old boy who's got access to hammers and nails and saws and fire. And the beautiful thing about play, which is something I haven't really even begun to discuss with you, is actually what play is. And the way that we define play is it's a freely chosen, intrinsically motivated behaviour that is driven by the child themselves. So it has no external goal or outcome. It's play for play's sake. And that is why today I found myself sat with a water tray playing with Playmobil for 2.5 hours with a 15-year-old boy. And he absolutely loved it. Because it doesn't matter how old you are, if you want to play in a certain way, then you should be able to play in that certain way. So we're working with children to give them really good opportunities that perhaps, whilst we're still not allowed to, we can't break government rules about social distancing, but what we can do is provide them with a good, physically challenging and stimulating environment. And we think that's something that every school could do, regardless of lockdown and regardless of social distancing. But again, we've found historically that schools have not invested in play opportunities, or when they have invested, they've invested purely for educational purposes. And education and play are two very different things. Education tends to have an outcome. Play should not have an outcome. And if it does, it's probably not the kind of play that we really want to be investing in. So suggestions are for us that introducing lots of loose parts to schools, you know, loose things that kids can play with. It's the cardboard box is the classic idea of the loose part. It can be anything. It can be put into, it can be pulled apart, it can be added to, it can be drawn on. So more things like this, and some good hand hygiene to try and limit any infection being spread. Although I think perhaps some good investment into actually children and the infection might be an interesting one to investigate a little more heavily as well. So what I'll do is I'm going to shut up. I think I managed to do more than 15 minutes, but I will show you a quick video. It's only about 3 minutes long. This is some of the stuff that we've done in a school, and I think it really shows the potential of what you can do, and it's cheap. I mean, really cheap. Everything that you're about to see in this school came to a collective cost of about £1,000. It manages to work with over 100 children every day. Bear with me, I'll share my screen again for one more time.
I think we started our adventure about 3 years ago at Ballasalla School. The playground, the field was great, but it was only for the summer. And slowly, through the introduction of wellies, little bits of wood, our playground's developed into what you can see today.
Yeah, we rated down. Why did you guest home?
All our children are moving. They're building, they're being creative, they're problem solving. We had less accidents. When we have children fall out though, there's usually something positive about it. We don't have rotated playtime, so all of our children come out to play together. So we've got reception children playing with year 6 children. I think one of the benefits for our school community is that all of our children know each other. They all know each other's names, they all know how they like to play, they all know the positives and negatives about each other's personality, and they bring all that together to play in a fantastic, wonderful way. You come in on a Monday to school, and sometimes you just don't know what to expect. You can see the hammer. That's a weekend creation, which suddenly coming on a Monday and it's just been used and used and used, and you see that evolving. So Monday is a great time to come into school.
Nice work!
I think one of the best things for me, we've got an example over there, we've got some children playing with a boat. That's a boat sometimes. Tomorrow it's a house, the day after it's a sledge, and it's just seeing the creativeness of the children we've got in school. I think we've been in such fortunate position to work with Isle of Play. I think we're just seeing the benefits of what you can see around us today. It fits in with what we do as a school, and I think it's going from strength to strength all the time. And for us as a school, it's just been a fantastic partnership.
Yes!
There we go. I think I'm done. If anyone wants to turn their microphones back on.